Most Christians know Job lost everything. His wealth, his children, his health, gone in a single day. But almost nobody teaches what actually caused his restoration. And when I found it, Job 42:10, I had to read it 3 times. Because the thing that turned Job's finances around had nothing to do with faith, endurance, or waiting long enough. It happened the moment he did something almost no one talks about. And I think if you're carrying any kind of financial anxiety right now, this is going to hit differently than anything you've heard before. So let's set the scene. Not the Sunday school version, the real one. Job wasn't just a spiritual man. He was wealthy. The Bible describes him as the greatest man among all the people of the East. 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen. He had financial status, social standing, and a faith that God himself commended. And then, in a single day, all of it was gone. Now, here's what most teachings focus on: Job's patience, Job's suffering. The famous question, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? And yes, all of that matters. But when we rush to the restoration, we skip the most important moment in the entire book. We skip what happened right before Job 42:10. Because if you want to understand why God allowed Job's restoration, and more importantly, what that has to do with your financial anxiety, you need to understand the 3 friends. The 3 friends, the accusation cycle. Job's 3 friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, came to comfort him. That was the intention. But what they actually delivered was something entirely different. They told Job that his suffering was his fault. Sound familiar? They said, if you were truly righteous, this wouldn't have happened. If you had prayed more, believed more, been more obedient, your finances wouldn't have collapsed. You must have hidden sin. You must have done something wrong. This is the voice of financial shame. And for many people walking through financial anxiety right now, it is the loudest voice in the room. If I had made better choices, if I had saved more, if I had just trusted God more. Here's what's critical. At the end of the book, God tells the 3 friends they were wrong. He says to Eliphaz, I am angry with you and your 2 friends because you have not spoken the truth about me, as my servant Job has. God validates Job's frustration. God confirms the friend's theology was broken. He rejects the idea that suffering is always the result of personal failure. But here's where it gets complicated, and where the hidden answer actually lives. Because even though the friends were wrong, even though their theology was broken, their accusations were unfair, and their comfort had become cruelty. God still told Job to do something extraordinary. He told Job to pray for them. Not just acknowledge them privately, not just release them in his heart. Pray for them. Intercede on their behalf. Job 42:8, God tells Eliphaz, my servant Job will pray for you, and I will accept his prayer and not deal with you according to your folly. Job prays. And then? Job 42:10. After Job had prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. After Job prayed for his friends. Not before, not during his suffering, not after 40 chapters of waiting and wrestling. After he interceded for the very people who had accused him, shamed him, and deepened his pain, then the restoration came. That is not a coincidence of the text. That is a sequence, a deliberate, instructive sequence. And it is the most important financial principle in the entire book of Job. So why does this matter for financial anxiety specifically? let me give you 3 things the Job framework teaches. Things you won't hear in a prosperity sermon. The first is this. Financial anxiety is often tied to relational wounds we haven't released. Job's greatest barrier to restoration wasn't his suffering. It was what the friends had done. The shame, the false accusation, the spiritual gaslighting. And until he interceded for them, until he released them to God, the door didn't open. Many people under financial stress right now are carrying a wound from someone who wronged them financially, a business partner who betrayed them, a family member who didn't repay a debt, a job loss that felt profoundly unjust. The anxiety isn't just about the money. It's about the unresolved wound underneath the money. And you can restructure your budget 100 times, but if that wound is still bleeding, the anxiety keeps coming back. The second thing, intercession shifts your posture from victim to steward. When Job prayed for his friends, he moved from being acted upon to acting. That is a stewardship posture. Stewardship isn't just money management. It's how you hold your heart toward what you've lost, what you're owed, and what you're trusting God with. Interceding for the person who wronged you financially is the hardest form of stewardship you will ever practice. And it's the one Job practiced right before his restoration. The third thing, the restoration that follows looks different from what you lost. Job received twice what he had, but it didn't come through rebuilding what was destroyed piece by piece. It came through a different door. Something
Now, I want to be clear about something, because I know how this can sound. This is not a prosperity gospel message. I'm not saying pray for your enemies and God will make you wealthy. What I am saying is this. Financial anxiety, the kind that wakes you up at 3 a.m., the kind that loops in your mind on repeat, the kind that makes every financial decision feel like it carries the weight of your entire future, that anxiety has a root. And for many people, that root is relational. It's shame. It's the voice of accusation from others or from yourself. Job's story says the path through that anxiety isn't more financial strategy. It's not a better budget or a more optimized plan. Those things matter, but they don't reach the root. The path through is intercession, release, a shift in the posture of your heart toward whoever or whatever you've been holding in bitterness. And that, more than anything else, is what restores your capacity to receive and to steward what God has for you next.
If this kind of deep dive into what the Bible actually says about money, anxiety, and peace is something you want more of, hit subscribe. Every video on this channel exists at the intersection of Scripture and the real financial pressures people are actually facing. Not theory, not prosperity, the real thing. And if you know someone carrying financial anxiety right now, share this with them. Sometimes the right perspective at the right moment changes everything. All right, let's close with the one practical step Job gives us. Think of one person, or even one version of yourself, that you need to intercede for in the context of your finances. Not to pretend what happened was okay, not to surrender anything legally or practically, not to act like the wound wasn't real, but to pray for them, to bring them before God and release the weight of what they cost you. Job 42:10 is on the other side of that prayer. After Job had prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes. The sequence is the message. If what we talked about today connected with something you've been carrying, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. What's the wound underneath the financial anxiety? What's the prayer you've been avoiding? Drop it below. I read every single one. And I'll see you in the next one.